Friends, good morning, and today I am again back with you on this Instagram for sharing my next thoughts on the rubrics. And yesterday we had discussed about I explained about the PT herself, that patient feels himself pitiful conditions. But there are also a type of the patient who feel themselves wretched. What is wretched? What is the meaning of the wretched? And we have to see that what this wretched word means, because wretched has got a feeling that this type of the persons, just a moment, a type of the persons who are already broken, completely lost. Everything is lost. So this is another important rubrics, and you may see that there are several patients on this planet who used to suffer from this type of the thoughts. Now friends, this word wretched, it originates from a long linguistic history. It has got a very long linguistic history, enriching its meaning with layers, emotional, moral and existential nuisance. It originates from the Old English term rekka, W-R-E-W-C-A, rekka, which meaning a banished person who are banished into that, who are exiled or outcasted. This outcasted word, I think you can, who are rejected by the others. One who is separated from the comfort society, and in Proto-Germanic root, reckon is refers to drive out, punish. The persons who are thrown away and who are punished and who are pursued, suggesting sense of being subjected to harsh fate or condemnations. Thus, from its linguistic ancestry, wretched denoted not simply sadness but a state of abandonment. That means forsaken by the society, abandoned by the society, left by the society, rejected by the society, misfortune and miserable inferiority resulting from the external and internal adversity. And by the Middle English period, wretched came with a meaning miserable, deeply unhappy, feeling that they are having no fate, they have no fate, भाग्य ही नहीं है, unfortunate, pitiable and compatible. It acquires both emotional and moral tones. Sometimes it could be wretched due to suffering or due to the morally degraded behavior. Modern use of embraces the purely emotional psychosomatic domain, a person overwhelmed by the misery, hopelessness, and self-condemnation, self-neglect, despair, and feeling of being unworthy. This is very important, sir. And so in homeopathy terminology, this wretched terms has got a very good meaning, and we have to be careful. We can get this type of the persons who are suffering from it. And this is a combined state involving emotional hopelessness, moral self-blame, and perception of being defective, and sense of humiliation or forsaken feeling, being forsaken. Collapse of self-esteem and physical exhaustion coloring the mental plane. Thus, the rubrics mind wretched encapsulate profound psychological, psycho-emotional degradation seen in several constitutional types. In homeopathic repertory, wretched captures the complex state of the inner misery that is deeper and qualitatively different from other sadness, grief, or depressions. Rather, you can say that it is more than sadness, more than grief, or the depreciation. It is a condition where the entire identity feeling is broken, physically, mentally, morally, socially, and spiritually. And patient within this rubric experience diffuse suffering that they cannot articulate, unworthiness of self-disgust, exhaustion of hope, withdrawal from the life's joy, and inability to perceive themselves as capable or deserving, a sense of being afflicted by the fate. That means that they have been neglected by the fate. They have got no fate. Clinically, the same state often coexists with chronic disease, prolonged suppressed emotions, and moral injury, guilt, or a sense of series of life failures that erode resilience. In the international historical perspective, homeopathic literatures like our Kent, Boger, Clark, they have placed these rubrics in a different level. Kent described that the abject misery, self-condemnation, loss of internal cohesion, most notably in medicines like aurum metallicum, netramuroticum, and sorinum. And Bonifacius captured the rubrics through the modalities and concomitant, linking the despair, bodily aggravation, and moral isolation. And Boger incorporated wretchedness as a quality expression through the loathing of the life. This is another big rubric that we can see later on also. So moral despair and self-pity combined with the disgust. The formal rubrics mind wretched appears in later repertories like our Kent repertory under the emotional suffering, synthesis, and the complete. An international practitioner uses these rubrics primarily for deep-seated constitutional cases with profound hopelessness, particularly in case of chronic elements such as tuberculosis, cancer, endocrine disorders, and long-standing psychosomatic illness. In our Indian perspective, owing to the rich psycho-spiritual tradition of the subcontinent, this wretchedness is interpreted as in broader dimensions, and like in Ayurvedic state, manovikar such as visad, dependency, avsad, depressions, drabalya, weakness of mind, and unstable mind. And the Bhagavad Gita descriptions of the Arjuna emotional collapse in the battlefield. Karpanya dos, wretched of the spirit, as a template for understanding the moral despair. The Indian social culture context of guilt, shame, family expectations, and societal pressure, where failures often lead to the profound feeling of worthlessness. Thus, historically, Indian homeopathic, they used wretched to describe multi-dimensional loss of inner power, often accompanied by somatic decline. The psychological state feature of the wretched state will be the patient have got the persistent continued unhappiness, dull pervasive sense of misery without clear cause, then hopelessness and despair. They feel that nothing will improve, there is no light ahead, loss of self-worth, a belief that they are fundamentally flawed or unfit. Then self-condemnation is very important, guilt, shame, self-blame, when even the minor issues. Then alienation and isolation. This is also one of the feeling unwanted. I am not for the society, unloved and socially disconnected. Then internal collapse, a sense of inner breakdown or fatigue identity and diminished will. So there is no motivations, internal motivations and extreme indecisiveness. Cognitive features are like that. Negative self-evaluation, overgeneralization, everything about me is wrong, and catastrophic thinking that God has cursed me, and persistent ruminations, and inability to see the positive outcome. Their behavioral feature will be withdrawal from the social circle, avoidance of responsibility, crying spells in between, and then silent suffering, expressions of helplessness, and poor self-care. Somatic features, it manifests physically through the fatigue, weakness, collapse, and poor appetite or comfort eating. Then disturbed sleep, body ache, and linked with the emotional despair, economic balance. Then clinical significance, you can find this rubric as an indicator of the constitutional disturbance with the and commonly appears in the chronic disease, especially when progress is slow, leading to the emotional deteriorations, failure of the vitality, a sign that vital force is weakened, endocrine and metabolic disorder, thyroid imbalance, diabetes, adrenal exhaustions, often produces wretched emotional state. Then post-suppression state, after suppression of eruptions, grief, anger, etc. And then addiction withdrawal. Alcoholic and drug dependent individuals often expresses wretched mental state. And long-standing guilt or the shame. There are some patients who carry the guilt and shame within their mind. The moral dimension of wretchedness is particularly strong in aurum or anacardium and staphysagria. Then empty nest syndrome, widowhood, and abandonment. These are the common in geriatrics, in the old age patients. Clinical importance is very useful. The extent of psychological, how much it has gone, then the deep miasmatic background and nature of past emotional injury, the constitutional type in need of the remedy. Now, how the patient will express and what will be their non-verbal indicators. Direct self-descriptions will be like this, may be like that. I feel miserable all the time. I am good for nothing. Everything seems hopeless. My life is ruined. I feel cursed. I do not deserve anything. Why am I like this? Something is wrong with me. Then the emotional indicator will be, no one understands my sufferings. I am alone in this world. I carry a burden inside me. And behavioral clues are during the case taking are crying silently and low broken voice, avoiding eye contact, sitting in a defeated positions and looking down frequently and responding slow or saying I don't know. Then hidden expressions are some patient mask. Some people will try to mask the wretchedness with humor and excessive politeness. Observational skill is essential. So you have to be very careful when you say some people are very humorous or they are very extremely polite. So within themselves they are the wretched. They may be the wretched. There are some rubrics which you can compare in the repertory miserable. Miserable focus more on the physical discomfort and self-pity. The miserable is situational and wretched is existential. Despair, a stronger sense of hopelessness. Despair deals with the future hopelessness. Wretched is a state of personal degradation. Then mind weeping, especially when weeping relieves or worsens the emotional burden. Wretchedness may or may not produce the tears. Self-contempt, self-contempt focus on the moral judgment. Wretched extends to total self-collapse. Depression, it is a general sadness but not necessarily self-loathing. Depression is a broader category and richer is a deeper and more personalized. Helplessness, a feeling of inability. Helplessness is equal to inability and wretchedness is equal to inability plus worthlessness. Then abundant feeling, a strong reference, isolation feeling, forsaken feeling. So abundant concern with the loss of other, wretched concern with the inner self. Then some of the remedies that you can find: aurum metallicum, deep despair, self-condemnation, feels unworthy, wretched, morally failed, and think of suicide but out of duty. Then Sorinum patients are utter wretchedness, feels forsaken by God, hopeless about recovery, gloomy, pessimistic. Netra muriticum, silent misery, holds grief inside and rejects the consolation, feels undeserving. And Scipia patients, they are emotionally burned out, indifferences broadening on inner misery and feels burdened off by life. Anacardium, inner conflict, feels degraded, morally weak, I am bad, unworthy. And Lycopodium, wretchedness after failure and inferiority masked by the bravado. Arsenicum album, wretched from anxiety, insecurity and physical decline and fear of being alone. Then Staphylococcus, wretchedness after humiliation, suppressed anger leading to the inner collapse. And Calcarea carn, wretched due to the overwhelm, feels incapable and exhausted. Then miasmatic analysis you can do with the soric miasm. Soric miasm, feeling of inadequacy, helplessness, dependence, insecurity and hope is present but weak. And syphilitic miasm, complete self-destruction, suicidal ideas, moral degradation and sense of being cursed or doomed. And psychotic miasm are suppressed emotions leading to the internal misery, guilt and hidden shame and excessive self-consciousness. Tubercular miasm, restlessness with despair, feeling trapped and longing for escape from the misery. And mixed miasm may be many wretched patients shows overlapping of the miasm. How you can identify during the case study? So, try to observe the non-verbal signs such as sunken eye, tired postures, frequent sighing, slow speech and emotional helplessness, heaviness. Then explore the emotional narratives. How do you feel about yourself? Is there a sense of burden? What is the worst feeling you carry? Then probe the self-worth. Wretchedness always includes diminished and self-esteem. Then identity trigger. What increases the conditions? Grief, failure, chronic illness, abandonment and shame. And then evaluate the depth. It is situational or constitutional. Does the misery affects the physical vitality? And then you determine the miasma also. is hopeless, leading to the moral collapse, is shame dominant, is persistent involved. So remedy identification will be dependent on the modality and concomitant. Now you can compare some of the rubrics. Wretched versus miserable. Wretched is identity collapse, miserable is emotional discomfort. Wretched and versus despair. Despair is future focused and wretched is self focused. And wretched versus self pity. Self pity is expect sympathy. Wretchedness seek nothing, it is inward collapse. And wretched versus weeping. Weeping may relieve, but wretchedness persists. And wretched versus guilt. Guilt is a moral, and wretchedness is existential. Now, during the case taking, I can tell you some of the story. A 45-year-old woman, she used to say, feel useless. Everyone would be better without me. I cannot manage anything. My energy is gone. Even the God has abandoned me. And the patient has got the dull eye, weak voice, and avoid eye contact, and sigh repeatedly. Then interpretations, deep psychosoric syphilitic wretchedness, and you can consider about the medicines like sorinum, aurum metallicum, sepia, but you have to find out the modality differentiation. So we can conclude like this. This is wretched represents one of the deepest expression of human suffering encountered in homeopathic practice. It is not merely sadness nor simple despair. It is a collapse of the inner sense of worth, dignity and hope and vitality. A wretched patient suffers silently, often drowning in an ocean of misery, unable to articulate the deep or inner breakdown. The true significance of this rubrics lies in the ability to uncover the constitutional damage caused by the chronic emotional suppressions, the psychodynamic roots and self-devaluations, miasmatic influence leading to the identity collapse, and the moral and existential pain that patients carry silently. And recognizing wretchedness requires sensitivity, compassion, and your deep observations. Many patients hide their suffering behind socially acceptable behavior, but only through a careful, empathetic case-taking process can a practitioner detect the subtle verbal and non-verbal cues that reveals this state. And choosing the correct remedy for wretchedness often restore the not only emotionally equilibrium but also physical vitality. So the remedy like aurum metallicum, sorinum that I have already told you has transformed many of such cases, demonstrating the profound healing process of homeopathy. So I can tell you that this wretchedness is not only a rubric, it is a window into the soul that has lost itself. It reflects the human longing for dignity, connections and healing. When understood in full depth, it becomes a powerful tool for both diagnosis and therapeutic transformations. So these are my understanding which I have tried to share with you, and I hope that this type of the rubrics will be useful for you for considerations, and you can find it useful in your clinical understanding also. Wretched, I am dealing with this unfortunate, wretchedness, pities herself. These are a group of the rubrics which are related to the mental phenomena. So friends, if you want to listen this rubric, you can go to my YouTube also, and in Hindi you can listen it properly. I am delivering this lesson on Instagram in in English language, and in YouTube in a YouTube channel in a Hindi language. So these rubrics, and every day I am trying to explain. I try to do it every day, and I hope this rubrics you will find it useful. But friends, be careful about listening and try to analyze yourself. This is very much important, because whatever I say, it is my thought, but you try to compare it with the others also. So friends, this is very wonderful session that I shared with you time, and I hope that this will be useful for you. And with these words, I thank you all. Thank you very much, and I will join again with next day with some new rubrics. Thank you very much.